Christina Onnested. President Joe Biden is in India to attend the G20 Group of 20 Nations gathering. The White House says the president will spotlight a U.S. plan to increase the lending power of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund by $200 million as an alternative to China's Belt and Road Infrastructure Initiative, which the U.S. views as a Trojan horse for Chinese military expansion. Meanwhile, a group of millionaires, economists, and political representatives from all G20 countries have signed on to an open letter calling for a new international agreement on wealth taxes to, quote, stop extreme wealth from corroding our collective future, unquote. President Joe Biden will also travel to Vietnam, where he's expected to announce plans to tighten economic cooperation there. Blistering heat waves have waned some in the U.S., but are still sticking in Massachusetts and New York. And in the South, Texas is still baking much of the state under an excessive heat warning. That's also in California deserts and parts of Arizona. Heat also impacting Puerto Rico has led to students and teachers demanding the government install air conditioners. The island's governor quietly vetoed a bill that would have done so last month. Hurricane Lee is expected to bring life-threatening rip currents for Puerto Rico and eventually into the southeast U.S. this weekend as it barrels across the Atlantic as a Category 5 storm. It's not expected to make landfall, but is forecast to generate dangerous waves of up to 15 feet. Meanwhile, in Greece, the country still grappling with floods from severe rainstorms that have left at least 6 people dead and 6 others missing. Floods triggered by rainstorms also hit neighboring Bulgaria and Turkey, leaving a total of 18 people in all 3 countries dead. Heavy rain in Hong Kong and southern China overnight flooded city streets and some subway stations. Police say 2 people are dead. Hong Kong recorded more than 6 inches of rain in 1 hour, the most since records began in 1884. A former White House official during the Donald Trump administration, Peter Navarro, was convicted of contempt of Congress for refusing to cooperate with a congressional investigation into the deadly January 6 Capitol attack of 2021. The trade advisor for then Donald Trump later promoted Trump's baseless claims of 2020 election voter fraud. Navarro was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts, both punishable by up to a year incarceration. Navarro vowed to appeal, speaking after the court hearing Thursday where he was heckled by protesters.
We knew going in what the verdict was going to be. That's why this is going to the appeals court. Is anybody listening? Anybody want to tell me that I would be here if Republicans had held the House or President Trump was in the office? No.
Guilty, patriot, traitor. Tell them this isn't January 5th.
Meanwhile, a judge is expected to release a special grand jury report today that helped lead to the indictment against Donald Trump and 18 others in Georgia for allegedly trying to subvert the will of voters in that state during the 2020 presidential election. Supporters of a Democrat judge voted into office in Wisconsin are pushing back after a Republican effort to impeach her in an attempt by the GOP to regain power over the state's high court. Alex Gonzalez reports.
Wisconsin Republicans are looking to impeach a newly elected state Supreme Court justice over donations she got from the Democratic Party. Democratic State Representative Greta Neubauer says Republicans didn't mind when their party donated to the court's conservative judges.
Every legislator must look in the mirror and ask whether they are willing to erase the votes of over 1 million Wisconsinites, including their own constituents.
Justice Janet Protasewicz won in a landslide and gave liberals a court majority for the first time in a decade and a half. That's boosting Democrats' hopes of overturning the state's abortion ban and gerrymandered legislative maps, which could weaken the legislature's GOP majority. I'm Alex Gonzalez for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
The Pentagon has announced a new $600 million package of long-term aid to Ukraine, providing funding for an array of weapons and other equipment. It comes just one day after Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Ukraine and pledged $1 billion in new military and humanitarian aid. In the U.S., a federal appeals court has ruled Texas's floating buoys with circular saws on them can remain on the Rio Grande for now, as a legal challenge plays out. It reverses a judge's decision earlier this week that called the river buoys a threat to the safety of migrants and relations between the U.S. and Mexico, and that they be removed. People have died getting caught in those buoys on the Rio Grande River. And a challenge to Florida's 15-week abortion ban gets a hearing at the state Supreme Court today. Planned Parenthood and the ACLU are suing to stop the ban. The decision will determine whether an even stricter 6-week ban can take effect. I'm Christina Onnestet, reporting for Pacifica Radio.